Years ago, I had a teacher friend who was very artistic. He took up tap dancing. He would tap dance on his desk in the classroom as he was learning these new skills. The kids loved it, of course. But the other thing he got into was art. He really enjoyed art, to observe it in a museum or own paintings or whatever. But he wanted to learn to paint. And so he signed up for a painting class. And he was sharing this experience, and I thought it was rather odd. He said one of the first assignments that the instructor gave was concerning portraiture. Don't paint the details of the person's face. Don't do that. Paint the space around the profile of the space. I thought, well, that's weird. But there was a real purpose for this. In other words, don't try to fill in the space, which is known as the face of the object being painted, but paint everything around that face. Leave the face blank. Just fill in the details around the profile of the face. But the wisdom in that, of course, is to get the right perspective on the profile and not to get gobbled up with all the details. So I thought that was rather interesting. But that reminds me of something that the theologians of years and years and years ago began to deal with. And it was called in Latin the Via Negativa, the way of the negative, or the negative way, if you will. And it's kind of akin to or parallel to this concept of painting the space around the face of the object being painted. Not painting the details in it, but painting the details around it. Or to put it another way, the Via Negativa was a way of saying, we don't really know some things about God. We don't really know what He is in a certain sense because we're finite. So let's talk about what He isn't. Not what He is, necessarily, but what He isn't. So how does this work out? Well, if we think about God, there are some things that are part of the via positiva. That is, there are things we can say definitely that He is. He's love, He's compassionate, He's just, and so on. But there's some things that seem incomprehensible, and that's in the realm of the Via Negativa. So let me just share a few words that we would use in defining God through His attributes. One is that God is incomprehensible. In means not. In a sense, there are things we cannot say about God. We just don't know. He's high above us. How about the word infinite? Well, what does it mean? Well, it has a lot of meaning as we ponder and reflect upon that word. But what it really means is He's not finite. Whoa. He's not finite. Well, I'm finite, so that means He's not like me. He's something bigger, better, more majestic than I am. He is infinite. Then there are other words that we use, like has an incorporeal nature. He doesn't have a body, not body formed. God doesn't have a body. He doesn't have arms and legs. He doesn't have a brain like we do. Wow, that's kind of interesting to think about that. And yet He relates to us. I'm dealing with somebody that doesn't have a body. But He helps me. He speaks metaphorically of the everlasting arms, His eyes upon His children, and so on and so forth. He is immutable. He doesn't change. No change. God does not change. Now we have to be careful with this, but there is an aspect of it which we really need to appreciate. God never changes in His character. God never changes in His decretal commands for His created universe. He makes a decree, it's going to happen. He doesn't change on any of that. He is unchangeable. Now, in fairness, we have to understand that when we pray, our prayers can truly change God. If I pray for somebody to have improved health, and I should pray for them. If it's in accordance with God's will, that prayer is going to bring about improved health. If I pray for an unsaved family member, my prayers can change the circumstances. The point is that when our prayers align with God's will, they have power. They have influence. God puts our prayers into the occasion and the equation of the work he's doing. But let me repeat, he is immutable. His character never changes. He's always a God of love, and he's always a God of justice. He is ineffable. There's nothing like him. There's nothing like him. There's no other being I can say, oh, well, God is like that being. No. And he's so far beyond us as to be quite different and quite not understandable in a certain sense. He is ineffable. He's immortal. He isn't going to die. He doesn't die, and he never will die. And our salvation, of course, rests upon that truth, that he will ever be with us. He is not mortal. And on it goes. So this Via Negativa is just another tool, if you will, another way of thinking and pondering who God is. He is unapproachable light. Isn't it amazing? There is a light, a glory, an effulgence that flows out of him that the fallen mankind cannot approach. St. Augustine said, and let me quote it, "If you comprehend, it is not God. If you are able to comprehend, it is because you mistook something else for God. If you almost comprehend, it is again because you allowed your own thoughts to deceive you." Now again, there is a via positiva. There are things we can comprehend. But Augustine is dealing with these larger issues, these negative words, if you will, that we simply cannot comprehend. We can only say he is not like that. But that gives us new, keen insights into the realm of his glory. So I think all of us should be encouraged to do some study on these attributes of God. Think about the Via Negativa as we approach some of them. It's helpful, helps us to grasp some of the significance. But what they really do, especially the Via Negativa attributes, that approach, is to show us how different he is, how small we are compared to how great he is, how limited our wisdom is compared to his. The fact that he's invisible, but that doesn't make him unnecessary, and so on. It just gives us a new sense of our smallness and our need for his greatness. God bless you.